Hello, everyone. We are at week number 2 in Biology 120. So you finished your first week in this biology course. We looked at the characteristics of life and the scientific method. So let's take a look at what we've got going on this week after we mention what we learned about last week. Last week was about the scientific method, which is an organized way to go about research in order to answer questions about the natural world. You have to do a lot of background research before you can develop a good question to ask about any particular topic. You have to design really good experiments and then carry them out time and time again. You never carry out an experiment once and then publish about it. That is not how science works. You have to repeat experiments over and over again until you're certain that what is happening is a real phenomenon. Then you take those results and you figure out what they mean. You analyze your data, you come to a conclusion, then you publish your work. This is terribly important because it shows the rest of the world what you think about this particular topic after you have done your experiments. And it allows your peers, particularly in the subject area, to analyze your results and see if they agree with it. And if they don't, you can believe me, they are going to disagree with it. So that's how peer review works. All right, this week is all about the chemistry of life. And you're thinking, this is a biology class. Why do I have to know any chemistry? Because all of biology is based on chemistry. All of organisms are made of atoms or molecules, and so you have to understand the basics of that before we move on. All right, your textbook. You have an OpenStax textbook that is absolutely free. Anybody in the world can use this OpenStax textbook, Biology 2nd edition. All you have to do is Google it and you will find it. Absolutely free, which is a tremendous resource for you to use. Read chapters 2 and 3 in the textbook. At least skim through them so you know where all the information is before you have to answer some questions. You're going to discuss this week the importance of water. Now, everyone knows that as a human being, you have to have water, right? You know that. But the thing is this, water is important for every single cell. So you're going to figure out why it's important on a cellular level, not just as an organism. You know that plants need water. Yes, if they don't have water, they'll shrivel up and die. Same for us, but we want to look at this on a cellular level because that's actually where it's important. You're going to take a look at carbon. All organic molecules are based on the element carbon. So let's take a look at that for just a second. I have a picture of a carbon atom. And what's important, I'm going to try to use my mouse here to show you. So what's important is that in this outer valence shell, see, I know you studied chemistry at some point, this outer valence shell, which is an orbital where you find electrons, you notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons, but you also need to notice these little blank spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. So carbon wants to have 8 electrons in its valence shell. It has 4. So it is willing to share 4 electrons with other atoms or molecules. And that's what makes carbon such a good molecule, such a good element to be the backbone of biological molecules, because it can form very complex, very large molecules of all different types and shapes and sizes because of this need that it has to share 4 electrons with others. Okay, so that's the importance of carbon as an atom. All right, let's go back to this. So you're going to discuss that, why carbon is so important and why it's the backbone of all organic molecules. You're going to study about the 4 groups of organic molecules. Organic just means of organisms, and what's that? An organism is a living being. So you've got carbohydrates. Now, you guys know a lot of these terms. carbohydrates, lipids. If you switch that word to fat, okay, you got that. Protein, yeah, all of this has to do with nutrition. All of us know about stuff like this. The 4 groups of organic molecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. They're all made with carbon. Every organic molecule is made of at least carbon and hydrogen. But, yeah, these are very large, complex molecules that we need as organisms. And so they include lots of other elements too, like oxygen, sulfur, potassium, phosphorus, nitrogen, so many more. So carbohydrates are basically sugar sources, either glucose, which is a food by itself, or storage molecules that help us store up food reserves in the form of glycogen and things like that. Some carbohydrates are structural. They make up part of our cell structures. Lipids, fats, oils, and waxes. They have the distinct characteristic that they are hydrophobic, which means that they are water-fearing. They don't mix with water, you know that. And that helps make barriers and helps some molecules be transferred as chemical communicators, like hormones, or lipids, like cholesterol, like estrogen, testosterone, etc. Proteins, many of the proteins are enzymes that run all the biochemistry in cells. But some of those proteins are also structural. And then we have nucleic acids, which are the genetic information in cells that carry the genetic code to make an organism whatever it is, whether it's a bacterium, a redwood tree, a human being, a possum, a dandelion that's growing in your yard, a fungus, whatever it is. Your DNA contains the code that determines all the traits that you have. Along with that goes RNA, which is another type of genetic information that is used up in cells. And so DNA and RNA are different, even though they are very similar. So we're going to take a look at those. I want you to read the Module 2 overview. It's just a quick PDF that gives you an idea of these different molecules and the topics that you're covering this week. Okay. So what do you have to do this week? You've got discussion board postings. You have those every week, I think, except week 8. Your initial post is always due by Thursday night before midnight. Your 2 response posts are always due Sunday night before midnight. So your initial post this week, you will be discussing the importance of the macromolecules. And what are those? Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids. Okay, those are organic molecules. Macromolecule just means big molecule. That's all that means. You're going to look at the importance of the organic molecules and water in cells. Remember, I told you you're getting back to cells. Why are these important in cells, in the life of a cell? Because our bodies are made up of cells, and that's what needs water. That's what needs these organic molecules. So you're going to discuss that, and you're also going to answer the question, if you had to fill in this formula, food plus water plus factor X equals life, what would you put in there as factor X? And this is all of life. This is not human life that we're talking about. So every organism has to have food and water and some other something. What is that? What's your opinion about that to equal life? So you're going to discuss that in your initial discussion board posting. Then in your 2 responses, you're going to take a look at food labels. Okay? Now remember I said carbohydrates, fats, proteins, everybody knows about those, and you know that those are on food labels. However, what about that 4th group of organic molecules, the nucleic acids? Have you ever seen that on a food label? Have you? Take a look at a food label. Do you see it? I bet you don't. So why not? Aren't they important? They're absolutely, tremendously important. It's really important to look at the structure of a nucleotide, which is the building block of nucleic acids, to figure out why that might not be on a food label. It's all in the structure, okay? Then you're going to do a journal entry. Remember, this is an essay on the properties of carbon. Yep, go back to that, the picture of that atom of carbon. The properties of carbon and why it's essential to life. And then you're going to discuss the link between fossil fuels and carbon dioxide, especially excessive amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and how all of that relates to carbon and organisms. It's like linking all of these topics together. Carbon, organisms, fossil fuels, the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. They're all connected. And this is due by Sunday before midnight. Watch the Reliable Sources video because you will start researching your topic this coming week. And you need to know what a reliable source is. So Wikipedia is not. Now, I'm not saying I don't use Wikipedia, because I use Wikipedia. If I want to know how many episodes there are of a new show that's on Netflix, I'm going to go to Wikipedia because somebody has posted something about it. But is it a reliable source for scientific information? No. Why is that? Because anybody can go in and edit the information that's in this online encyclopedia. So you need to know what a reliable source is. Is it an opinion internet site? No. You've got to know where the information is coming from and how recent it is, and if the person who wrote it is an expert, all that sort of thing. So take a look at that video. All right, and then you need to be looking at your final project topics and choose one this week. Okay? Here's a list of them. I have them right here on the slide. I'm going to mention them, not in much detail, but I'll mention them. If you don't like any of these, you can choose another one, but you have to get my okay before you do research on it. Okay? Because, and I've had students pick topics that were so gigantic that there's no way you can make a presentation in basically 6 weeks on this topic, or is so specific that you're not going to find enough sources on it to make a good presentation. So that's why I use my discretion and expertise in order to figure out whether you can do this topic or not. So let's take a look at them. Population ecology. So lots of you are in environmental science. Lots of you are interested in conservation. Are you interested? Are you a hunter? If you're a hunter, are you interested in the deer population in your area? If you are, there are people in your state who count deer. They keep track of how many are killed. They keep track of the sex of each one. They do counts out in the field. So there's all kinds of ways that you can study population ecology. Population is members of the same species that live together in a place and time. So there are all types of populations that are studied. Are you interested in that? Air pollution, particularly in your area, or some area that you're interested in. You can do a presentation on air pollution. Water pollution, oh, there's so many types of that. Everything from pollution of groundwater, which is not on top of the ground, it's under the ground that you tap into with wells, etc. Water pollution of the ocean, water pollution of rivers, lakes, streams. In your area of the country, release of effluent from sewage treatment plants into water sources. There are all kinds of ways to take a look at that. The energy crisis and alternative sources of energy, like hydrogen, like solar, etc. Eutrophication, which is sort of an aging out process of bodies of water, like especially places like lakes and ponds. algal blooms, that sort of thing. That's eutrophication also. The red tide, if you know about that. The human population and how it is just exploding. In 2023, we are going from 7 billion people on the planet to 8 billion. So this coming year, in a few months' time, we expect the human population to reach 8 billion people on the planet, which is crazy. Genetic modification, genetic engineering, where you're changing the genes of organisms. You can do this with crop plants. You can do this with people. We don't do that much with people yet. And actually, there are laws against it, that sort of thing. But I think it's coming? I sure do think it's coming. It definitely will have to be regulated. But genetic modification, we have all kinds of ways now to modify the DNA of organisms. CRISPR, if you've never heard of that, is a really important way right now that genetic modification can occur. Deforestation, terribly important, especially in the Amazon. Oh my goodness. Brazil is just, the president of Brazil just thinks that it is awesome to slash and burn the Amazonian rainforest so that his people in his country can do agriculture and grow food. Okay, that is great. That's awesome. I agree. You got to feed your people. Is that the best way to do it? I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be no to that. So anyway, deforestation, you can study that. Biodiversity and the importance of it, why we need to have biodiversity in ecosystems. You can't have 1 or 2 species in an ecosystem. That is not going to have any kind of balance. You have lots of different species in an ecosystem to help keep it healthy. And if you take out any one of those, which we do as human beings all the time, when we move into the area, the first thing we do is take out all the predators. So what does that mean is going to happen? Oh yeah, all the prey organisms, all the prey animals have a huge population explosion. Yeah. This also involves endangered species. So back in 2012 was the first time that I ever laid eyes on an American bald eagle down at the beach. And my heart was pounding so hard. Oh my goodness. It was out on the beach, and the eagle was catching fish that the dolphins were throwing up on the shore as they were doing their strand feeding, which I just showed you a picture of in my last slide. And I saw a bald eagle, and I was so excited. I've lived on this planet for several decades now, and I had never seen a bald eagle in South Carolina. And I got to see one, and I have seen many since that day. So talk about a success story, because bald eagles were endangered species and still are. I mean, you can't even possess a feather from a bald eagle. No matter how you got it, you cannot. So endangered species are a part of that. Global warming, climate change, that's a really important topic for environmental scientists and everybody on the planet, because if we don't control this, we are going to totally change the landscape of the earth and for our future generations, which is terribly scary. Waste management, very important. Where does your garbage go? Where does your sewage go? How do we dispose of things? A really important topic. I have a couple of extra ones. Microplastics, I'm really interested in that, especially in the ocean, because plastics that end up in the ocean tumble over and over and over each other, and they break into smaller and smaller pieces until we have microplastics. Also, these tiny micro beads that we have in different products to increase the friction of materials, they're ending up in the oceans and ending up in organisms. Also, one that I have that I'm interested in is light pollution. And you think air pollution, water pollution, light pollution. What in the world? What in the world? Have you ever been out in the desert or in a forest at night and there are no human lights lit, it is just amazing to look at the sky. It truly is amazing because there are so many stars that you can see. But if you live in a city, you are never going to see them. Why? Because of light pollution. We have so much light that we put out at night to light up parking lots. And I know that's for safety, and I am all for that. But still, we don't need all the lights that we have. If you've ever flown into a city during the night, in the evening, you know what I mean. There are just lights everywhere, lighting the roads, lighting parking lots, Walmart parking lots, grocery store parking lots, car lots, everywhere. So light pollution is an issue too. And those are just a couple of extra topics that I have. If you think of something else that you're interested in, ask me. We will discuss it and see if we can figure out a way to manipulate this topic where it will be a good one for you to research in the next 6 weeks or so. Okay, so those are our topics. Hopefully you can find something that you're interested in. And I usually try to give a tip of the week. Wait a minute. Here are my Post-it notes. I got them always beside me. Post-it notes. Jot down a list of things to answer for each assignment. Right? So I know you've read it. You read what the requirements are, but if you just jot down a little bullet list of the things that you need to include, you won't forget anything. And this is important because I grade based on what you're turning into me, and there are certain requirements that you have to answer. So realize that it helps to just jot down a list on a Post-it note or something. Okay, I hope that helps you out. And with that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week this week, and let me know if you need anything. m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I'm here to help you. Have a great week.